You see the headlines all the time, right? A U.S. aircraft carrier has been deployed somewhere as a show of force. And you think, okay, they moved a big boat, but what does that realistically mean? Well, today, we're going to break that down because the reality is so much bigger than just one ship.
So it all starts with something that sounds super simple, a news alert that pops up on your phone. The USS Abraham Lincoln has arrived in the Middle East. Okay, fine. A ship went from here to there. Seems pretty straightforward.
But this is where we need to peel back the layers. Because when the news says an aircraft carrier, that's not even close to the whole story. What has actually moved into position is an entire ecosystem of military power, so massive that its very presence sends a powerful message. Okay, let's start with the main event, the carrier itself. And the first thing you have to understand is this isn't just a ship. For all practical purposes, it's a floating, sovereign piece of American territory. It's a mobile airbase that you can park anywhere in the world's oceans. And to get a sense of the sheer scale we're talking about, just look at this number. 100,000 tons. That's how much water it displaces. This is an absolute titan of the seas, a true monster of engineering. And here's what gives it its incredible reach. U.S. carriers are nuclear-powered. They have 2 reactors on board that let them sail for over 20 years without ever needing to refuel. Think about that. It's a strategic advantage that is absolutely massive, and no other country in the world has this technology for their carriers. And wow, this chart really drives that point home. The U.S. has 11 of these nuclear power giants. The rest of the world combined, they have 6, and all of theirs are conventionally powered. It's just a staggering difference in global presence and power. And don't forget, this isn't just a hunk of metal, it's a legitimate floating city. You've got about 5,000 people living and working on board. That's pilots, engineers, doctors, cooks, a whole town's worth of people, all dedicated to one mission. Now, this right here might be the single most important thing to grasp. The carrier's real punch doesn't come from the ship itself, it comes from what it carries. And as this quote says, the air wing on a U.S. carrier is basically the same as the entire air force of a decent-sized country. So what does that air force look like? Well, you've got almost 50 Super Hornet fighter jets for strike power. But it's so much more than that. You have Growlers, which are designed for electronic warfare. Their job is to jam and blind enemy radar. Then you've got Hawkeyes, which are like the eyes in the sky for the whole fleet, giving early warning. And of course, helicopters for everything from hunting submarines to search and rescue. It's the whole shebang. Okay, so when you have an asset this valuable, you better believe it's also a gigantic target. So, as you'd expect, the carrier itself is a fortress, just bristling with layers of defensive systems to make sure nothing can get through. And these defenses are built in rings. Way out, you've got Sea Sparrow missiles to take care of threats from far away. If something manages to get through that, it's met by rolling airframe missiles. And then, if by some miracle a missile gets really close, it has to face the Phalanx CIWS, which is basically a giant Gatling gun that creates a final, impenetrable wall of hot metal. But believe it or not, that's just the carrier's own defense. The single most crucial thing to understand is that an aircraft carrier never, ever travels alone. It is the heart of what's called a carrier strike group, a whole fleet of warships that act as its guardians. And here's a quick look at that Guardian fleet. You've got a cruiser, which is the command center for air defense, and then a handful of destroyers that can do a bit of everything. Now look at that last column, VLS cells. Each one of those cells holds a missile. Just do the math. We're talking about hundreds of missiles, both offensive and defensive, all there to protect the carrier. So, to put it simply, think of the cruiser as the quarterback for air defense. It's got the big radar and manages all the long-range threats. The destroyers, they're the jack of all trades. They can hunt subs, fight other ships, and shoot down missiles, creating this incredibly tough, flexible wall of defense. So you've got the carrier, its air force, and this whole fleet of warships protecting it on the surface. That is an absolutely staggering amount of power. And yet, the most dangerous part of the entire group is the part you can't even see. It's time to go beneath the waves. You see, every single carrier strike group is escorted by at least one nuclear-powered attack submarine. Its presence is never, ever officially confirmed, which makes it the silent, ghost-like hunter of the fleet. Just like the carrier, it's nuclear-powered, so it can stay submerged and totally undetected for months at a time. Its main job is to hunt. It sneaks out way ahead of the main fleet, listening for enemy submarines, which are the #1 threat to a carrier, and taking them out long before they ever become a problem.
And this thing is incredibly lethal. It's carrying heavyweight torpedoes that can sink massive ships, and it's also got Tomahawk cruise missiles that it can fire from under the water to hit targets hundreds of miles inland. It is the absolute master of its domain. So let's put this all together. The next time you see a headline that says, "An aircraft carrier has been deployed," this is the realistic picture you should have in your head. It's not one ship, it is a fully mobile, self-contained army. You are talking about a fleet of around 8 warships. The carrier, the cruiser, the destroyers, the support ships, all connected, all working together. Riding on top of that fleet is an entire air force of roughly 75 advanced aircraft, ready to dominate the skies and strike targets from hundreds of miles away.
And the whole thing is run by about 7,500 highly trained people. That's the population of a small town, all focused on one mission.
So here's the real takeaway. Moving a carrier actually means deploying a complete military ecosystem. It's a force that can control the sea, dominate the sky, and own the world beneath the waves. It's a symbol of national power that is truly unlike anything else. Which brings us to the final thought. Once you understand the realistic scale of what a carrier strike group is, you start to read the news a little differently. It's not just moving a pawn on a chessboard. It's like picking up the entire board and placing it wherever you want. So the real question is, when a force this powerful moves, what's the message it's really sending?